got to tell you, what are we, like on day 3 of the new year? And my workout goals are stunted by both this weather and just general lack of will. Welcome back. This is Don't Watch at Night, a spooky little podcast dedicated to Spanish language horror and Latin American horror. I'm your host, Valerie.
And I'm Veronica.
Happy New Year, Ron.
Happy New Year.
How'd you guys celebrate?
Just at home. What did we do? Oh, well, we were at a Spurs game earlier that night, but that ended about 10. So then we just came home and we're just watching, the stuff on TV. On the television.
I was not aware. I don't keep up with stuff, and you didn't mention it. I wasn't aware that Popovich had a stroke.
Yeah, he's been out of the limelight here for a while. He did send out a note saying that he's thanking everybody for their prayers and support, and he'll be back on the sidelines soon, and he makes a terrible patient.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Was it very severe?
They haven't really said, given any specific details, but
I hate to be dumb here, but was he even still the coach, or has he been okay?
Yeah, he was still the head coach.
Is the plan that he would come back, or is he looking to retire at this point?
The plan is for him to come back, but of course, it always makes you those are usually the kind of the life events that might make you reflect and think. So who knows? But yeah, I'm hoping he comes back. As usual, we're going to be going through this movie and spoiling it out the wazoo for everybody. So if you haven't watched it, you've been warned. Don't blame me. First movie out of the gate for the new year.
First movie that you watched hours ago.
Yes, I just finished it an hour ago. I was going to watch it last night, but I had some stuff going on. And then I remembered that I was off work today. And I was like, well, then I can just watch it tomorrow, in the morning. And then there was a whole thing where I went to the app on the smart TV, the Max app to find it, and couldn't log in. And I couldn't remember the freaking login stuff. So I'm texting my husband, but he's working, so he didn't answer right away. And then I'm texting my kids, but they're all still sleeping because it was only noon and they're teenagers. Uh-huh. And so I'm like, somebody. And finally, my youngest daughter texted back with the sign-in information. And then I couldn't find it because I was misspelling it because stupid American me was doing the American spelling, the English spelling for Cronos. Anyway, finally found it. Okay. So that's what we watched. Our first movie in 2025, Cronos, which is a 1992 film by a very young Guillermo del Toro. Actually, his first debut film, he was 28, 29 when it came out. Independent film, had a budget of maybe $2 million. And it's an hour and 34 minutes, sorry. So it's kind of that sweet spot that I think all horror movies should be. Stars Federico Lupi, who plays the main character, Jesus Gris. Trying to Spanishize his name. Berman. Is that even a word? Spanishize? Anyway, Ron Perlman later became a very frequent collaborator with Guillermo. Yes. He plays Angel. Claudio Brook, who plays, it's just called De La Guardia, I don't know.
Yeah, De La Guardia.
It's actually a small cast. Margarita Isabel, who plays Mercedes, the wife of our main character, and Tamara Zaneth, is that how you say it? Who plays Aurora, the main character's granddaughter. So a small cast. And the tagline just reads, a mysterious device designed to provide its owner with eternal life resurfaces after 400 years, leaving a trail of destruction in its path. So your first thoughts, Miss Valerie?
Well, so I watched it last night and I thought, man, I'm really pulling a Veronica and flying by the seat of my pants. And then she had to one-up me today and be like, nope, I'm watching it right now.
There's always room to procrastinate more.
So I agree with some of the critiques that we have listed for you guys that we looked at. I agree that this movie doesn't necessarily have the Del Toro polish that we have come to expect from this director. Obviously, this being his first film. But I think you see elements of what was to come later for him in his career here, even as early as The Devil's Backbone, which is also one of the earlier films of his career. That film is considerably stronger. His growth really took like he really grew and just became a stronger and stronger filmmaker. So I enjoyed the concept of it, and I could see where if you were to expound on it a little bit more, it would be even better and more fleshed out. But good bones. I thought the bones of it were good. It's more fresh in your brain. What did you think of it?
I liked it, and I definitely agree with your take. It's definitely not as polished as his later films will be, but you definitely see the seeds of what his vision is and what he can accomplish. The muted colors that are pretty common to all of his, at least the ones that I've seen. Not seen every single movie he's ever done, but of all the ones that I've seen, they all seem to kind of have that a muted color palette. It has the touches of humor in there, which I really enjoy in a horror movie. I don't like it when a movie or a book is just kind of all one note. It's all depression, or it's all jolly, jolly, jolly. I like there to be,
or it's all trauma.
Yeah, I like there to be peaks and valleys, because that's what life is, right? But I also think that all of his films, and again, of the ones that I've seen, and one of the review articles that are listed in the show notes talks about this, is that they all have feelings of melancholy and loss. Yeah, that's kind of like a common theme that runs through his storytelling. So I did enjoy it.
The reason I thought this would be a good one to open with is kind of piggybacking off of all of the Nosferatu stuff in the air right now. I was like, well, what's a good vampire-esque story that we could go for? And this one came up, and it is a vampire story, although doesn't necessarily follow.
It's a vampire without vampires.
Yeah.
And actually, by the end, I was like, it's a vampire and a zombie movie.
Yeah, it doesn't really follow like whatever our notions are of like a typical vampire formula is. So,
and it also just coincidentally takes place like around Christmas and New Year's.
I know, and I was like, hey,
so
look
kind
at
of
that.
time-wise it worked out too, seasonally.
I can't believe he was, like you said, he was like 28, late 20s.
I know. I was thinking like, dang, what was I doing when I was 28?
I was no visionary like this, I can tell you that. I did read, I guess there is what's dubbed as like a standalone sequel, but it's not directed by him, and he has no involvement in it. So I think the tone of it is completely different, but it's billed as a standalone sequel called Somos lo que hay.
I did not know that.
We are what we are. So that one came out in 2010, but it's not directed by him, and I don't think he has any involvement with it whatsoever. So I'm not really even sure
what it's about.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that it could be dubbed a true sequel then in that sense. As we were talking about this being not your typical vampire story, I kind of felt like the monsters of this film are not even the vampire, really. It's just, if anything, he's the one kind of desperately trying to cling to his senses of humanity. So I thought that was interesting and different. And apparently, what did you say the old Federico Lupi?
Federico Lupi? I don't know. That made me know how he pronounces his last name. But
he would later go on to be in The Devil's Backbone. He's the old man, right? Yes. Yeah. Devil's Backbone.
Oh.
Hold on. I'm trying to get like a picture of him in that movie just so I can refresh my memory. But he's showing up as billed in both of those films. I was trying to remember. Do you remember when we watched this movie, we looked at, I might have to try to pull it up, but we had looked at like all of Guillermo del Toro's movies ranked, and I was trying to figure out where Cronos fits in all of the rankings.
It pops up on a lot of like best of horror kind of lists. I've seen
it. There he is. There's the old man. It is him.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me he's dead.
No, is he dead? I think he might be dead. I don't know. I think, yeah, he died. He died in 2017. I mean, that's cool that he starred in this first movie of Guillermo's and then went on to do The Devil's Backbone. So he's a great actor.
Straightforward plot. We start with like some alchemist dude back in the past, like 1536, there's a voiceover kind of telling us that he's an alchemist who, for whatever reason, is looking for basically something to grant him immortality. And somehow, some way, he creates this device that's called the Cronos device. It's kind of in the shape of this golden beetle scarab looking thing. Don't know how he did it. Don't know how he found the information on how to make this possible. But then it cuts to like 400 years later. Oh, it says he flees his country and he lands in Veracruz, Mexico, I think it was. Veracruz? And then flash forward to 400 years later, there's an earthquake. The building that he lives in crumbles and they find his body. There's like a piece of debris that's pierced his heart. So this is kind of the first inkling of the vampire lore that's been tweaked for this film.
Yeah.
And he says 2 words. What was it? Suo tempore, which I looked it up, and it's Latin for my time.
My time.
My
Ooh,
time.
nice.
And
my time at last.
My time at last, 400 years. The police find his apartment, and there's like basins, bowls full of blood. There's a dead male naked hanging from his feet that's like being bled out into a bowl.
Yeah. Just being drained.
And so they mentioned how the contents of his apartment were never revealed to the public. So then we flash forward to 1937, Mexico. And so basically the gist of the rest of the story is there's this wealthy man, De La Guardia, played by Claudio Brook, who is dying, I think, of cancer.
Mhm.
And he, somewhere in his lifetime, came across the alchemist's old like notebook.
Yeah.
And so he's convinced that it's real, that there's this device out there that can prolong his life, that can keep him from dying. So he's dispatched primarily his nephew and other people to like search any kind of antiquarian shops, antique shops, looking for, because apparently the alchemist hid the Cronos device in like this skeleton of an archangel. And so they've been scouring, looking for this thing. They've eventually located in the antique shop of our main character, Jesus Gris, played by Federico Lupi, who's just a sweet
old man who runs an
man
antique shop.
who runs an antique
Living the
shop.
dream. It's like, it'd be cool to run an antique shop.
He's married. He has a little granddaughter that I guess they're raising. And he and the granddaughter appear to be very close, have a very loving relationship. And he has the Archangel statue has landed in his possession, and De La Guardia's people find it, track it down there.
At the time that this movie comes out, where is Ron Perlman's Beauty and the Beast TV series in relation to this? Was that pre this? Was that around the same time as this? Because he's very young in this film. He's a youngin'.
Beauty and the Beast was that's the new one. That ran from 1987 to 1990. Yes,
you used to watch that one, right?
No.
Okay, I thought you did.
I saw like a couple of random episodes, but I never like followed it.
Because it was Ron Perlman and
Linda Hamilton, Sarah
Linda
Connor.
Hamilton. That's right. I was like Linda Hamilton. Yep. Yeah. So a young Ron Perlman.
Well, the whole movie, I was just like wondering, like, why are you? Why are you with your... I mean, I guess it's greed. He wants to inherit whatever his uncle is going to leave him when he dies.
Yeah.
And his uncle is trying like hell to not die. And I'm like, why do you keep listening to him? And the man's walking around on 2 canes, and he needs 2 canes to walk around.
Right. And he does all of his dirty work for him. Like he's basically his henchman. And he at some point he comes to the antique store on orders of his uncle to try and get this statue. And he seems to have this bizarre obsession with his nose. Ron Perlman does. And Angel is his name. And so he's like got these nose cards because he's trying to, I guess, he's obsessed with getting a nose job. I guess at some point he wants to perfect his face. The movie is a mix of Spanish and English. So initially that kind of threw me when the movie started because I was trying to set subtitles and it wouldn't let me. And I was like, well, but then the voiceover in the beginning explaining the movie is in English. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is going to be a blend. The original, I believe, is all Spanish. This movie, by the way, is set to be released in February of 2025 with a bunch of bonus stuff.
Yeah,
and so
a lot of little neat extras.
A bunch of cool bonus stuff. So I was like, dang, that sounds awesome. Maybe we should have held out until we could get a hold of that. And then we would have had all these extras to talk about. Let me see. Where are we?
Well, he's arrived and purchases the statue, but unbeknownst to him, like the previous night, Jesus and his granddaughter were
cleaning
like a hole. There's a hole in the eye of like the statue is missing an eye, and while they're playing some kind of game, like all these roaches start coming out of the.
It's like no.
Jesus realizes that there's hollow space. There must be hollow space inside this statue. And so he proceeds to kind of inspect it and eventually is able to remove it from the base. And he finds hidden in the base of the statue is the Cronos device wrapped up. And he takes it out and he's cleaning it and he winds it up. And initially nothing happens. So he thinks, well, so much for that. And then all of a sudden the thing sprouts like these sharp little legs that clamp onto his hand.
Beetle legs. Yeah.
And it draws blood. Now, the granddaughter is remarkably unfazed by all this all this is happening. She's just standing there.
Yeah, I mean, she's not registering alarm or anything, but yeah, it is sort of, I guess, drinking his blood. And anytime the machine is operating, we do get some shots of like the inner cogs of the machine moving and working. I don't know if it's here or later, but eventually we do see there is a bug in there, like an actual
something. It didn't look like a bug to me, but something's in there. Yeah, every time it works, we get a little bit more a better view of whatever is in there.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like a bug to me because then eventually by the end, I was like, I kind of feel bad for the bug
Me
that's trapped in
too.
there.
Me too. I was like,
Let it be free.
hashtag justice for the bug.
So that is the first instance that of him being attacked by that. Later on, that like he has to have his wife clean it up, bandage it for him. Isn't it later on that night that he is like itching it beyond?
Well, he wakes up and he goes to the refrigerator to get a drink of water, and then ends up like guzzling the whole pitcher of water. And then they show a sight of what I assume was some kind of raw meat. I don't know what it was. And he's looking at it like he's being tempted by it, but he shuts the door on it. He's like super hot, so he has to open the windows, and his palm is itching, which is supposed to mean, isn't it, that money's gonna come your way? Doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So he's itching. Then he finally goes, I guess, in desperation, and hauls out where he's hidden the Cronos device, and he's saying a prayer as he puts it back on his hand. And then it's like a drug addict's response.
Right.
The way
It's
he just kind of like that immediate euphoric release of.
So, I mean, and this is all speculation, but like, is it that this thing feeds on your blood? Obviously, does it create the urge to want to drink blood, or do you have to drink blood in order to replenish what it takes?
I don't know. That's a good question because it never really explains. I mean, obviously it creates a hunger. Honestly, I don't know if it's a hunger for blood or if it's a need for human blood. It doesn't ever really state and what the relationship that has to the actual scarab, and it's the fact that it has to puncture its host and feed on its host's blood. So it's just murky things that aren't ever really clarified one way or the other.
And so then that next morning he does wake up and he does seem to have a little pep in his step. He's got a youthful glow. He seems to just be, he's not all buttoned up with his little bow tie. He's got an open shirt. He's like, oh yeah, I'm Rico Suave. Is this when he heads off to his shop and sees that it's been ransacked?
Yes, it's been completely ransacked, vandalized, because obviously De La Guardia has received the statue that his nephew went to purchase, and they realize that there's nothing in there.
Yeah. So they come back and essentially ransack his shop, but I guess they left their calling card. They left some sort of business card that lets the old man Gris know that this was De La Guardia behind it. So he goes to see De La Guardia, gets to have a conversation with this old man who just seems to live in this weird, isolated,
sealed off room,
sealed off chamber. He's got all this he's hooked up to all this medical equipment because he is dying. He's got
Although he looks pretty.
Yeah, he didn't look that sickly.
Healthy. It's not like he looked.
He looked pretty able-bodied, and
And so we get little snippets of information about the Cronos device. We learn that there are rules to it, but we never learn what those rules are necessarily.
He makes an interesting. He draws some parallels between insects and godliness or something. Can you kind of explain that a little bit better? Because I'm not sure I caught all of that.
He just says that insects are gods. He tells him that there's an insect in the Cronos device, and that insects are, he's like, don't you know that insects are God's favorite creatures? But I don't really know what that means either. It's like,
well, and like I wasn't clear on what he was saying. Like he was implying that insects lead extraordinarily long lives. He's like, you can have rocks, you can have ants living under a rock for like
years and years and years.
Years and years and years. And I'm like, can you? I don't know about that.
Yeah, that didn't seem right to me.
What is the life cycle of an ant? I don't know.
Because it like gives all these little cryptic and then he also says something about, Gris asks about, well, how do you end it? And he says something like, well, the only way to end it, no, if you destroy the device, then it ends you, basically. Yeah. So just little cryptic things that's pretty much all we learn about the Cronos device overall. Not a lot of information. It's not very forthcoming. Gris has shown up with a little shoebox, which is where he had hidden the Cronos device. There's a little scuffle because, of course, De La Guardia wants it. Gris is hesitant to give it up, but he eventually hands over the shoebox and then leaves. But of course, the Cronos device is not in there. It's
It's
fake
back
out.
at home.
Now,
It's
here's
back at
where I
home.
don't understand why at this point De La Guardia doesn't just send Angel to, because they know they opened the box before Grease has even left the building. So they
Right.
know already before he's made his good escape that he tricked them, that there's nothing in the box. He didn't bring the device with him. So I don't know why why doesn't he send Angel out there to grab him?
Yeah,
Come back in.
I was kind of expecting that. I was just like,
Yeah.
oh no, he's not out of the building yet. But
Haul him back in and say, hey, we know where you live. We're going to hurt your granddaughter if you don't hand over the device.
Right.
Bing, bada, boom, we'd have been done.
Cut to black.
But no, that doesn't happen.
Angel tells him, you have the toy, but we have the instructions or something. We have the book, whatever.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing that the old man, De La Guardia, mentions when the two old men are conversing up in his chamber. You do see in the chamber with him, he has what he calls parts of himself from previous surgeries presumably on display in jars, things like that. You never get to see it, which I was kind of bummed about, but I was just like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, he gets home, realizes that the little girl has stashed it away. Yeah, because she's worried about him. She still doesn't speak. She doesn't have lines in this particular scene, but the old man is trying to relate to her and try to understand where she's coming from. And he's recalling a time. And I guess this is the only instance that we get that, yeah, this is his granddaughter. He once had a son, apparently no more. He's relaying a story of how when her father was a little boy and he was worried about his dad getting sick from smoking or something. So he took all of his tobacco, hid all of his cigarettes, and tried to flush him down the toilet. He comforts her and persuades her to show him where she's hidden the scarab beetle, and she's hidden it in her teddy bear. Does he use it once she...
Use it again, because I guess the next scene, they're getting ready. It's New Year's Eve. They're getting ready to go out to some party. He's in the bathroom, and now he's attached the scarab to his right chest. Over his heart, like right over his heart. He gets his fix, I guess you could say, and then they go to the New Year's Eve party. He's feeling all sexy with his wife, and then at the party, there's another gentleman who apparently has a nosebleed and heads to the bathroom, and Grease sees this, and the blood is calling to him.
And I was like, no.
He follows him to the bathroom. I was like, oh God, he's going to kill him. But he doesn't. He just, like, the guy mops up his... Now, here's where it's really gross. Because the guy, mops up gets the bloody nose to stop, and then he leaves, but he leaves like a pool of blood right there on the bathroom counter.
Biohazardous waste.
Yes, doesn't try to clean it up or wash it away, and so Grease is eyeballing it, and he's getting closer and
trying to pull it together.
So I guess so he can slurp it up when some other dude comes out of one of the stalls, and he's I don't even know what he was talking about, but he sees the blood, and he's with his bare hands starts like pushing it into the sink, and then he doesn't wash his hands and leaves. What the hell is the matter with you people?
It is the 90s. We know about biohazardous waste. Come on.
And what the hell is wrong with you people?
But Grease sees a spot, a remaining spot of blood on the floor.
The public bathroom floor, people. Let's remember this.
Not a small spot, mind you. So he gets down on his stomach and just starts licking the blood off the floor.
This was actually the most disturbing scene in the whole movie to me.
Yeah.
Number 1, it's blood. Number 2, it's on the floor. Number 3, it's a public bathroom floor. I was icked out.
It was gross. It was drawn out too. It wasn't quick. And I was just like, I don't want to see this. And we do hear footsteps. And I was like, dude, someone is going to walk in on you. And sure enough, it is someone. It's Ron Perlman. Who finds him and kicks him unconscious and hauls him away.
Kicks him in the face, blessedly ending that disgusting scene.
Obviously, it's New Year's Eve. The ball is dropping, and he's not there greeting his wife or granddaughter. He's in a truck or some sort of vehicle with Ron Perlman. Mm-hmm. Do they duke it out? Do they have once he comes to?
I wouldn't call it duking it out, because Grease just kind of, he's the punching bag, and Ron Perlman just kind of beats him into unconsciousness.
And so he thinks the old man, he beats him unconscious, thinks he's dead.
Puts him in the car.
And then
pushes it over the edge.
Sends it over the cliff. The old man doesn't die, but he does seem to be making some sort... Does he make a plea for his... who's he talking to? It's like is it a voiceover that we're hearing?
We're hearing his thoughts, I think. Thoughts running through his head, and he's just kind of lamenting that here I am, I'm dying alone. Don't let me die this way. I can take so much more pain. I can endure so much more pain. And then the last thing he says is his granddaughter's name, Aurora.
Yes.
And then he, by all accounts, appears to die. And then we get the humorous scene in the morgue.
Yes. Yes. I don't necessarily know that Guillermo del Toro was playing for like straight laughs, but I think he was intending for these moments to have some comedic lightheartedness to them. So, I mean, it's just, it is what it is.
Dark humor.
Yeah, dark humor is what it is. He's in the box. Or no, he's not on the box. He's on the table. That's right.
Whatever you call those people that like make them up, like repair, make them presentable for like an open casket, I guess. If there's any like head wounds, or they repair it, make them look as natural as possible. So that there's this dude working on him, and they're talking about, it's a work of art. It looks so natural, and he's like all into like yes, and
he's all into his work, and the other man is like, hey, by the way, the family's requested cremation. He's like, what the hell, man? Why wouldn't you tell me?
Like, should have led with that.
They are going to have a cremation, but they are going to still have a proper funeral, because in the next, I don't know if it's the next scene. I think at some point we do get Ron Perlman back at the factory with his uncle, and his uncle is like after him because he's like, you need to did you check his heartbeat? You need to verify that he is in fact dead, and sends Ron Perlman to the funeral home to go verify. And so this is where we see that they did have a viewing, at least, because the old man is in the casket looking very oddly made up. And I was just like, is that him? That doesn't look like him, but it is him. And yeah, Ron Perlman is trying to verify that he is in fact dead. Post viewing, this is another comedic scene where he's back behind with the Undertaker, mortician, whatever.
One of the people that work, I don't know.
Somebody, but they're preparing to light up the chamber and send his casket into the chamber for cremation. Only the thing won't light. And so the guy, and we don't even get his name, but the mortician guy goes and tries to mess with like gas stuff and tinker with things and get things working. And so then when he comes back to properly light the thing, closes, he doesn't see, but we see the casket is now empty, and he shuts the casket and he sends it in there. And I was like readying myself for a scary attack moment.
I was like, don't kill this guy. He didn't do anything.
But we don't get that. We don't get that. He's there. He's eating a banana, waiting for the casket to finish cremation. And the funeral director comes in with Ron Perlman. And Ron's like, I need to see the body. And the guy goes, well, how do you want to see it? Well done? Medium rare?
Medium rare or well done? Which rude.
And so Ron sees, okay, the casket is being burned. Val, there's everything we need to know. He's dead.
Coming back from ashes.
Except he's not dead. Veronica, where is he?
He is walking around with us. And why is his suit on backwards is what I want to know. Like,
and then for the remainder of the film, his suit is on backwards. And
like, why is his suit on backwards? Like, why would they have dressed him that way? But he's walking around at night. He's rummaging through garbage. He finds a blanket. I guess he's cold. And then he also comes across like a newspaper that someone threw away, and he sees his own obituary. He tries calling home. His wife answers. All he gets out is he says her name and she hangs up. I'm sure she thinks it's some kind of cruel prank. But the granddaughter, she was doing that old trick we used to do where you hold the
receiver,
pick it up, and she's listening on the other phone. Basically, he makes his way home, and granddaughter Aurora is there. This child's going to need therapy by the end of this movie, is all I have to say. But again, she seems completely unfazed and he's not looking so spiffy anymore. Let me just point that out.
He's looking a little papier-mâché.
Yeah, he's got that zombie aesthetic going.
He's got the undead, the look of the undead.
She brings him in. She sets up a little, I don't know how he fit, but look like some sort of kind of chest,
like a clothing
for him to sleep in. And here we also see that sunlight bothers him.
He's developing, So this started as like, okay, he's starting to develop more authentic vampire tendencies. Is this when he starts drafting his letter to his wife?
Yeah, he tries writing a letter to his wife when he's like struggling. I guess it's hard for him to write. Basically, we get that he's going to go back. He wants to go back to La Guardia. He's got questions because he says, if I've lost everything, I want to know why.
Right.
So he wants to know why this is all happening to him. And I want to know why. I have questions.
Right. And so potentially, because he writes that letter to his wife, and then he goes off to the factory, realizes his granddaughter followed him. And he's like, what do you do?
Do in movies like this?
He's like, what are you doing? Don't you know we can be hurt, we can be killed? But then they're rummaging through the De La Guardia's chamber. Presumably they're looking for the book that had the instructions so that he can, I guess, better understand what is happening. And then we see that the old man is in the room. Like they didn't even make sure to go at a time when where else would he be? He's dying. So
he's always there.
He wakes and he sees them and he confronts them.
And Grease is all like, what good is eternity? What good is living forever? Look at me. My skin is rotting.
It's like falling off him.
And the guy's like, dude, just peel it off.
Yeah, and so he does, and I thought, oh, he's going to be this gorgeous hot man underneath the bed. He peels off a little bit, and it's just like this sick, white, weird-looking skin.
It's like Darth Vader without his helmet.
Yeah. You're just like, oh, that's like not great. That's not good.
This fish white, pasty-looking skin underneath.
Well, because at this point, I was wondering, too. I was like, what is the point of immortality if this is what you look like?
Yeah. So, of course, De La Guardia is all like, we can share it. We can share this. And Grease is like, I don't want any part of this. I want out. And like, how do I get out? And De La Guardia's like, well, there's only one way out. And so he proceeds to stab him in the gut. And then when he falls on the floor, he straddles him and he's poised to stake him through the heart.
Because he
knows our vampire lore. Granddaughter Aurora uses one of his canes and whacks him over the head with it. One of the reviews said she's basically little more than a robot sidekick. Because she really hasn't said a word so far, and her emoting is lacking, I will say.
Is a little lacking. But we do, once she knocks the dude out, or knocks the dude just dead, there is a brief scene where it does seem that in that moment, it does seem like Grease starts to feed on him. Right? And so then I thought, okay, well, so now he's going to look better because, but no, nothing really changes for him. I'm like, well, what is the point of all this? I don't get it.
Apparently, whatever damage your body sustains, just you got to live with it.
It kind of reminds me. Did you ever see that movie Death Becomes Her? Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. It's really just like much of the it's just like once you're damaged goods, you're damaged goods.
Yeah, there's no fixing it.
Ron Perlman. I love how he has a name and we're just like Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman.
He starts to get curious about what's going on. He's calling to his uncle. His uncle's not answering. So he comes upstairs and finds his uncle there dead and bled out on the floor. And rather than be like, oh no, there could be someone here. No, Ron Perlman just starts celebrating because he's like,
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas to everyone.
He's not dead.
That's right. He's not dead. The uncle wakes and is trying to tell him what does he say? I don't know if he says
his name or something. Yeah. He just reaches out an arm and Ron Perlman's like, nope, dude, time to go. Puts his boot on his neck and stomps down on it. And so
does he see the old man?
He sees them.
And so he's like, gotta go kill this dude again. And he takes off after them.
What do people in horror movies always do when they're in a building? They go up. They go up to the roof.
Final confrontation on the roof.
Ron Perlman chases them up there, and he's just wailing on Grease, Grease can take a punch. I can take a beating. I'll give him that.
And I was aware that we had 12 minutes left in this movie. I was like, where is this going? How's this going to end?
Well, Grease, he tells Ron Perlman's character, you've got a lot to lose. For me, it's just pain. And I was like, what does he mean? And then all of a sudden he lurches forward, grabs Ron Perlman, and he hurls them both over.
Off the roof.
Through
a window ceiling or something. Or they fall through something. And I was just like, aha, that makes sense. I was like, when you can't die, you got nothing else except maybe a little bit of pain. He does in the process throw Ron Perlman to his death. He, of course, Grease is not dead. The little girl pulls out the scarab beetle. Puts it on him. That revives him enough to be able to sit up, and for a second I thought he was going to start feeding on his granddaughter.
Well, we do, yeah, for me too, because he's
looking a little zombie-esque this second time around.
Her hand is bleeding, and he sees it, and you can see he's struggling, and he's having that inner struggle, and he eventually yells no, and he grabs the scarab beetle and he just smashes it with a big old rock over and over and over again. And then
until blood comes out of it.
Yeah. Poor bug.
I know.
The bug was just a prisoner. He was slave labor.
But De La Guardia did make that point earlier in the film that to destroy the thing is to destroy yourself. So at that point, the ending scenes of this movie, after he destroys the device, his granddaughter does help him back. We see him in bed. We see him full skin, the full new skin from underneath is exposed. So now he just looks like Gary Oldman in Dracula.
Yeah,
kind
like
of.
not good. It's not a good look.
And we see his wife come in, and presumably he is dying, right? He's finally experiencing his mortal death there on
Well,
the
that's what I
bed.
think, because as it's fading out, and I was watching like his chest falling, but the daughter had laid her head on his chest, so it was hard to see. But you can see that he raises his hand to his wife, and she takes it, and I don't know if she kisses it or she brings it to her cheek, and then the hand just kind of flops.
And so I took that to mean, okay, he had the final death, a
Mm-hmm.
fitting ending, and certainly in keeping with Del Toro's storytelling style.
Did you think that, like, after he smashes the Cronos device, because he says "Soy Jesus," and then there's a
Yes.
pause, and then he says his last name? Do you see any, whether it was intentional or just coincidental, religious aspect to the way he said "I am Jesus"? And then there's a definitive pause between he finishes with his last name, but the "I am Jesus." Do you see any kind of religious intent there, where you have a man who was fighting off temptation, the temptation to feed on his granddaughter, but just before remembering who he is, and then smashing the Kronos device, which in effect means that he's sacrificing himself to save her, to save others. So what are your thoughts on any potential religiosity there?
I hadn't even put it together till you said that, but I mean, it's an interesting thought. And one of the reviews that I wanted to make sure to mention a quote from before we're through does kind of talk about the religious aspects that feature in Latin horror films now and again. So, I mean, yeah, it's interesting to look at Guillermo del Toro's body of work and think about where else he might have religious elements in any of his storytelling. The Devil's Backbone. It's a church, right? Like it's a church
like an
school.
old abandoned mission that's been converted into a.
I hadn't put that together. I just know, I do remember that line, him saying his name and kind of, I guess, trying to reassert
his humanity.
Like, like we were saying at the beginning, just sort of reassert that he did not in the end allow himself to go full monster. He reclaimed who he was. I thought that was beautiful.
So what price immortality, Valerie? Because I think it's interesting that in most of the times when immortality is an element of a movie or a book, it's almost always presented as like we as the audience, the viewers or the readers, we kind of, I don't know if it's instinctually know that it's a bad thing, because it's almost always the bad people in the story that want it.
Well, and it's greedy, right? It's greedy to want forever. Yeah,
what was your price immortality? Like in this story, yeah, you can live forever, but it's not a guarantee that you're not going to necessarily look like a youthful 24-year-old forever. You're going to look like some worn out like paper mache man, like you said.
See, and I mean, I hate to sound vain, but it's like, if that's your forever, you can keep it.
Yeah, and
okay with that.
And I know there's a book out there. I think it's called The Immortal Life of Addie LaRue. I think it's what it's called. Now, I have not read it, but the premise is basically Addie LaRue is a character that, for whatever reason, because I haven't read the book, makes a deal with the devil at some point to give her immortal life, which is granted to her. But the catch is that no one will ever remember her. So she'll pass through all these years, but no one that she ever meets will ever remember her. So it's basically like she just doesn't exist, right? Would that be enough for you? Would you say, yeah, I'll live forever?
Yeah, I just don't feel like there's in any movie that we've ever seen that has depicted immortality, even Lord of the Rings, and I'm coming fresh off of a viewing of the trilogy again, even that, there's no part of immortality that I think sounds appealing to me, because it just sounds like a lonely, sad existence. In the case of Lord of the Rings, where it's like, what is it to go through life and just watch everyone around you get old and die? And I know Arwen's is like, yes, but I will have been able to live and love with these people and create a life with these people. And so in the end, it's worth it to her to do that.
Well, she does eventually die.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. She chooses a mortal life because she would rather walk through what did she say?
One lifetime
Than go through all the ages of this world alone. Yeah, so for me, there's no appeal to immortality. I don't know if there's like anything that would appeal to you about it. I can't think of what.
Not unless everybody I know and love is also immortal, then maybe. Yeah. But barring that.
I mean, I guess if you're going to be some crime-fighting superhero, for me, no.
Apparently, when Ron Perlman was cast to play the nephew, he was meant to speak fluent Spanish, but of course he doesn't speak fluent Spanish. So
Yeah.
Guillermo basically changed it so that he would be, I guess, instead of a Mexican citizen, he's an expatriated American who resents his life in Mexico. Obviously, in the film, resents his uncle. And so intentionally, what little Spanish he does speak, he deliberately does it poorly.
When we first meet him, and I think like the first line he delivers is in Spanish, I thought, oh, dang, he's going to speak Spanish for this? It's like, that's awesome. And then no, he doesn't. I was like, okay,
No.
that would have been impressive.
And then this is like bizarre. So all of the original Cronos devices that were created for this film by an art designer by the name of Maria Figueroa created the original molds. But when production was wrapped on the movie, they were stolen and never recovered, so that the ones that Guillermo has are actually just replicas of the original. I'm like, who the hell went and stole all these
I know, man.
things from the movie?
And probably like sold them. Who knows? Wasn't there a story, Ron, with Labyrinth, with the movie Labyrinth, where one of the puppets? One of the creatures created for the movie Labyrinth got like misplaced after the production, and then they found it in a suitcase many, many years later, and it had just been completely wrecked and destroyed because it hadn't been properly stored. They just like misplaced it. Am I making that up? I don't know.
I've never seen that movie.
You've never seen Labyrinth? What? Veronica. I just made my kids watch that again just recently. Here, I'll keep looking for that. You keep going.
So, and then like I said, this was an independently produced film. And so originally, actually the original budget was $1.5 million, but they went $500,000 over. So it eventually cost $2 million, which at the time was the highest budget for a Mexican movie at the time, which is kind of bizarre. It's like chump change now.
I know.
Well, not for me personally, but in Hollywood.
It's still a lot of money for me, but you know.
Yeah. For me personally, it's a lot of money. But Guillermo del Toro got that extra $500,000 through loans and bank debts, but it meant also having to cut costs where they could in the making of the movie. And one of the places where they cut costs was Ron Perlman graciously agreed to a heavy salary cut in order to make the movie work. But then, of course, he and Del Toro have had quite an extensive working relationship since then. He's been in quite a few. He was Hellboy. So
okay, I found it. Okay, so Hoggle was a puppet featured in Labyrinth heavily. The puppet disappeared during a plane trip when director Jim Henson tucked it into a suitcase after filming was wrapped on the 1986 cult classic. The airline lost the suitcase since it was no longer needed. No one really went in searching for it, and it just sort of lingered for years. And then Hoggle resurfaced at the Unclaimed Baggage Center in Scottsboro, Alabama in 1997. It's like 11 years later. By the time Hoggle was discovered, foam encasing his metal inner skeleton had begun to wear away. He hadn't been properly preserved. So kind of creepy.
And then another little bit of trivia. Robot sidekick granddaughter Aurora only had one word that she utters in the whole movie, and that was abuelo.
AI bot Aurora. Poor baby.
Poor Aurora.
Where is she today, I wonder? Where is that actress today?
I don't know. This I did not catch at all. The way that Jesus peels off his skin from his forehead was supposed to actually in the shape of a beetle, but
I didn't catch that either.
That did not come across on my television.
No, I didn't pick up on that either.
In their first meeting, which we mentioned when we were running through the movie, De La Guardia says that insects are what is really made in God's image and are his favorite animal. Of course, in Guillermo del Toro's second movie after this one, which was Mimic, which I did see, featured a genetically engineered strain of bugs that begin to impersonate humans. Maybe he has a thing for bugs.
A thing for bugs. That one was with Mira
Sorvino.
Mira Sorvino. That's right. I did manage to go find that link, and we'll repost it again for you guys that we had shared on the Devil's Backbone episode. But the link of every Del Toro film ranked, Cronos is ranked as number 5.
What's the number one? Pan's Labyrinth?
Well, damn it, I don't know. Now I gotta hold on. Let me see.
Go back. Number
1 is Pan's Labyrinth. Yeah. Number 2 is Shape of Water. Number 3, Devil's Backbone. But yeah, Cronos is number 5, which that's pretty cool. I think it's
What's number 4?
Number 4 was Pinocchio, which I never saw that one.
Seen that one.
I did want to share. There was a cool on that. What I was just talking when we were talking about the religious question, the Roger Ebert review written by Roger Ebert himself back in 1997, I want to say. Maybe later, maybe earlier than that. But he said, all good horror movies have a sense of humor, usually generated by the tension between terrible subjects and the banality of everyday life. He does reference that embalming scene that you and I found funny. And he says, what Latin horror films also have is an undercurrent of religiosity. The characters, fully convinced there is a hell, may have excellent reasons for not wanting to go there. The imagery is also enriched by an older, church-saturated culture, and for all its absurdity, Cronos generates a real moral conviction. If, as religion teaches us, the purpose of this world is to prepare for the next one, then what greater punishment could there be, really, than to be stranded on the near shore? And then I did have one more I wanted to share. This one was from Collider.com, and this article came out around the same time that Crimson Peak was set to debut. So this was a while back as well. Guillermo del Toro is a man of monsters. The charming, gregarious filmmaker knows his bleak mythologies inside and out, and he has a deep love for darkness that usually results in feelings of melancholy and loss. I think you referenced this too, Ron. He cares deeply for the grotesque, the broken, the misunderstood. And then it goes on to say his debut film, Cronos, doesn't quite reach this apex, but it's an incredibly promising start from a director who was in his early 20s when he wrote and directed this script. So it was just sort of like a great inclination of what was to come, as we've already indicated. It's considered a cult fave, so if you haven't seen it yet, you definitely should.
Good first pick.
Just one more reminder, guys, because the next episode we have coming up this month, January 20th, we will be discussing Extended Stay. I am about halfway through it.
I haven't started it.
Well, I mean, it'll read fast, but
I keep procrastinating because my husband, who has read it, just keeps saying it's really harsh, but I don't know. It's really so I'm like, you're not upselling it.
He said harsh?
Yeah. He said even from the beginning,
the beginning is harsh. Yeah, if you can push through that.
Well, again, not upselling it.
Well, but yeah, more to come on that, friends. Get those books read. And I do want to just encourage you all. We do have a Patreon. We're going to link it for you in show notes. I do want to let you know. So it's free to join Patreon and be part of our Patreon. And then you can purchase a $3 tier, which unlocks everything for you. It's just one tier. But what Patreon also allows us to do is we have individual posts that you can purchase. So maybe you don't want to do $3 a month. And I get it. Not everybody can do a monthly fee or a monthly subscription like that. So there might be something in particular that you want to buy access to. We do put out one video episode a month. So maybe you just want to, hey, the episode they did this month, I really want to watch that. You can purchase that separately without having to commit to a monthly subscription. Check it out. We'll link that for you guys. We're going to do our monthly recommendations at the book club episode. So we'll have some time to pull those together.
Usually at the end of the year, I like to, whatever books I'm reading, have them done. That way I can start off 25 with a new book. I have like 3 books that I'm carrying over. So it really bugs me. I don't know why, but
no, I get it.
I didn't finish them. And so I'm like 3 books that I'm like,
yeah, I get it because I have like my 2024 list. And it's like, that's supposed to be a book that I read in 2024. And I can't count it because I haven't finished it yet. So it's going to be a 2025 book. Extended Stay, I had on my 2024 list. And I didn't really start it till like the cusp of the end of the year. So it's going to be a 2025 book. So without giving too much away, though, I have been enjoying it.
I need to start reading. Hoping everyone's year is as good as possible, wherever you are, whatever corner of the world you're in. You stay with us for the ride, and we'll see what happens.
All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye. Don't Watch at Night is a Nest production hosted by me, Veronica, and Valerie. Editing by Valerie. Music by Omar Chakor. Production support for this episode provided by Lorenzo Villarreal and Alex Street. Listen to new episodes of Don't Watch at Night every other Monday, and don't forget to give us a rate and review. It's the best way to help us grow.